Hi guys, Sarah here from Highland Haven Dog Training, Highland Haven Australian Shepherds, and welcome to episode 3 of our podcast, Dog for Thought. Joining me is my co-host, daughter and dog trader extraordinaire, Sophie.
Hey guys.
So Sophie, tell me what's been going on. What's going on in Highland Haven Dogland? What happened this week?
So we realized that Ruby's definitely getting to the age where she's starting to have a little bit of incontinence.
Urinary incontinence. Yeah, that was a little sad, but not uncommon at this age. To remind you guys, Ruby's our oldest Aussie. She's 13, and in all other ways is in great shape. But you've noticed a little deterioration, some atrophy in her back end, and then you noticed that your room started to smell like pee and you couldn't figure it out.
Oh my gosh, I thought it was Twiggy. I thought maybe like the puppies were hitting her bladder and she just wasn't telling me she had to go or something. But then I realized like my floor is getting sticky and I'm like, what is going on here? And it was just little droplets that were just leaking off of Ruby when she was getting up too fast or just would forget to ask to go to the bathroom, or we're just like,
Yeah.
So old age stuff.
Yeah, it sucks. We brought her to the vet and there was a little protein in her urine. So they gave her some pills to tighten up that sphincter muscle. And she seems a little bit better.
Yeah, and we have like a new routine for her to take her out more frequently, and we have a diaper on her at night. But
Yeah, I mean, she seems fine in all other ways. She just has to go out every 2 hours when we're home. Fortunately, we are home a lot, and we can make that accommodation for her. But when we're not, she can wear that diaper, and she seems fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, she seems perfectly happy. So, I mean, it's not like she's mentally deteriorating. It's just part of life.
Yeah, it's sad, but it is what it is. But her quality of life is still really good right now.
Yeah.
So then we have Journey and Twiggy. Just a quick update. We're recording this. I guess Journey is I want to say she's week 5 and Twiggy is week 4.
Something like that.
So Journey has gained weight. She's gained a pound or 2. So that is pretty much confirmation that she is pregnant. But Twiggy hasn't gained any weight yet.
No.
So we're not sure she's pregnant. Only time will tell. There is no such thing as a pregnancy test for a dog, which really stinks. We can do a sonogram or an x-ray, which we'll do towards the end of pregnancy. But I think we got another week or 10 days before we can decide whether Twiggy is pregnant as well. Let's keep
I'm
our
really
fingers
hoping
crossed.
because I'm going to be really bummed if, it's a long time to not to have to go into heat multiple times before we're going to breed her again, which is a concern.
It is what it is. We'll keep our fingers crossed. So we should probably get on with the show, no?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So today we're going to discuss some of the messages we get from the world about how we should be dog owners, right? What it is to be a good dog owner. And I mentioned this in episode 1 where I talked about, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with. There's a lot of things. We have a lot of opinions, me and Sophie, about this. So we decided to narrow it down to just one topic today, socialization. And that is dog-to-dog socialization and dog-to-human socialization. Give us a topic that we can wrap our arms around and discuss today. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I want to start by just reminding everybody that we are located in a suburb of New York City. So some of the messages we get from our regional culture might be different from where you are if you live in a different part of this country or if you live in another country and you're listening to this. But Sophie and I are just going to concentrate on the messages that we get from the wider world as to what is expected to be a good dog owner. So Soph, what do you think, what messages do you think people get from the wider world about what it is to be a good dog owner?
Socialize. Meaning bring them around people. They should say hello to everybody. They shouldn't be left alone.
Right. I definitely agree that when you're talking about socializing your new puppy or new dog with people, the messages are the more the better. Quantity over quality.
Yes, 100%.
And I think people are misunderstood or misunderstand the the goal of this, which is that we want to make our dogs neutral in an environment, calm and comfortable in a new environment, meeting new people, rather than super happy and excited.
But it also depends on your breed, right? So I feel like people, these are all baselines for every single dog, and it's just not true for every single dog. Certain dogs are going to be more fearful towards people than others. I mean, our dogs are definitely one of those breeds, where if you have a retriever, he's going to have a much easier time socializing with all different types of people. So we have to give and take of what types of socializing are we pulling from, and what are the benefits our dogs are getting from it,
if any, or are we doing the opposite of what the goal is? I think my least favorite thing that somebody has said to me when I'm socializing any dog that is nervous or fearful. What do you think they say to me, Sophie? Can you take a guess on what people say when they see that dog?
Oh, your dog isn't that friendly.
Or how about, is he abused? Did he come from an abused background?
Yeah, that's a big one. Oh.
So a 10-week-old puppy who's meeting a strange person, if they don't run up to that person and jump in their lap and give them kisses, the first question is, did something happen to them? Do they have something terrible in their background? Well, you would never say that about a shy person.
No.
It's just automatic assumption that they have something negative in their background, rather than knowing the breed, whatever breed it may be, and that maybe they're just more reserved. Or within each individual breed, you have, varied personalities, where some are just naturally more introverted than extroverted. So I think a good place to start would be to sort of define socialization, dog to human socialization. I don't think it's a very good word for this, because it really, what your goal is to make your dog feel neutral, meeting new people and being in new places. It's more dog desensitization rather than dog socialization. And I think that sometimes people apply, human to human socialization to dog to human socialization. And of course, when people are socializing with each other, it's the same species, you're speaking the same language. But when you're talking about socializing your dog to new people, they speak two different languages. Unless you're talking about introducing your dog to somebody who's like super dog experienced and really understands dog body language, 99% of your time, the time that your dog meets somebody new, they're going to almost be speaking two different languages, which can be quite confusing to a dog. So applying that definition sometimes I think helps people redefine how they're going to approach this. So it's not so much looking to make your dog happy in a new situation or meeting new people, but to feel comfortable, to not feel triggered, not to feel afraid, not to feel, fear can come out in different ways. It can come out in aggression. It can come out, it's fight, flight, freeze, right? Mm-hmm. So I think when you put it that way, we do things a little differently. Do you want to talk about how you socialized Twiggy with new people?
Yeah, sure. Well, with Twiggy, I already kind of knew that she was going to be somewhat fine with people, depending on her breed. She was obviously going to be more reserved with people than other breeds. But with her, I knew going into it that if I prompted the people who came into our house with, I just want you to ignore her, let her come smell you. If she asks for your attention, you can give her the attention, but for the most part, don't go up to her and pet her. And if she barks at you, just ignore the barking. So eventually she's able to settle down. That was my goal with socializing her with new people, is her to greet the person in her own way without the person intruding her space, and then her to go decide to lay down and be comfortable in that environment. And if that means that she needs to go in the other room to do that, I'm completely fine with that. But it was important for me that she was able to properly greet somebody without it being a negative interaction, without the person trying to reach for her, trying to make provocative eye contact, which most people do.
Basically, all eye contact with Aussies is provocative.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's very hard because Aussies have a hard eye. They do like to stare at people right in the eye. Mm-hmm. And it's very natural for people to stare back at them, right? It's a natural response. And then the dog is like, hey, what are you staring at? What are you staring at? It's like, you started it, dude. Mm-hmm. Aussies can be tricky that way, for sure. I think that when you socialize within your own household, you certainly have more control over it because these are people you know.
Yep.
And you can sort of, like you say, give them some tips before they come in. It's really different in the world. And I think this is where it can go wrong, right? Because people sort of think, well, I'm supposed to bring my dog, everywhere. And I'm supposed to let, anybody come up to see the dog because that's going to desensitize them. If they meet tons and tons of people, that's going to desensitize them. That's going to, and thus socialize them.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality is, if a dog is afraid in an experience, exposing them to the same experience multiple times, they're only going to get more afraid. They're actually not going to desensitize because nothing has been done to make them feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Just re-exposing them doesn't make them desensitized.
And it's going to teach them unwanted behaviors.
Right. They're just going to keep escalating because they're like, you're not listening to me. I'm not comfortable. I want space. And of course, people don't speak dog for the most part, and they don't read those signals.
No.
So what I try to remind people is when your dog is afraid in a situation, if you're going to re-expose them to that situation, you have to do it in a much different way that involves positive reinforcement of some kind, which is almost always food, distance, so that the dog can learn to feel comfortable and associate that particular person or place or thing with something positive, food.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think that's a thing that people frequently get wrong. I'll just keep bringing them to the soccer game. Just keep bringing them, even though they're afraid. Well, if we don't add something in to make them feel comfortable, to counter condition that initial fearful response, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Yep.
So I don't want to, imply that bringing your dog to a soccer game is necessarily a bad thing to work on desensitization and socializing, for lack of a better word. You want to talk about some suggestions on how to do that in a healthy way? So
Absolutely. So, if I was bringing Twiggy to a soccer game, the first thing I would do is introduce it from really far away. Like the parking lot is going to be overwhelming for her with all the kids running around. So I'm going to bring her when the parking lot is a little dimmed down. There's not kids running all over the place and getting all set up. And then I would slowly introduce her into the field from a distance, and I would pair a lot with food. And the closer we got, the more food I would be giving to her until I saw that she was uncomfortable with however close we got, with the noise and with the screaming. And then I would stop there and pair it with food. And that would be my whole interaction with her at a soccer game, at the first soccer game. And then as time went on, I would bring her closer and closer and closer until she felt comfortable in this environment.
Based on her behavior.
Exactly.
So the easiest way to tell that a dog is over threshold is that they won't take food, right? They go from taking the treat to all of a sudden going, no thanks. That's a real red flag.
Yep.
They're over threshold. They can't even take a treat, or, in some cases, respond to a toy. If you have a very toy-driven dog, that's going to be your first red flag as to, I'm too close. I need to take a step back and bring that dog back under threshold. Once a dog is over threshold, they go into lizard brain. They really can't process anything. They're in a fear state, and their brain shuts down. It goes into a very primitive mode. Now,
and I think the whole point of this is to have a positive experience.
Right.
So if they get into that lizard brain, it wasn't a positive experience.
No.
So now the next time you go, you're going to have to start all over again from scratch.
Right. And, it's easier to do with some breeds than others. Mm-hmm. Some dogs we refer to as forgiving dogs, some dogs, some breeds, and some breeds and some personalities are unforgiving. And I just mean that, I know I always use a golden retriever as an example, but it's like the opposite of an Aussie in so many ways. So, a golden retriever I would refer to as a forgiving breed. You could bring your golden retriever puppy to the soccer game, and the kids come over and they overwhelm it accidentally. That dog might get frightened, but that dog has a more forgiving nature, and you might not completely screw it up for the next time. They might be able to desensitize to that simply because they're such a happy-go-lucky, easy-going dog. A more unforgiving breed, like the herding breeds, you do that once and they remember it.
Yep.
So it's also important to know what you've got. Have you got a forgiving dog or an unforgiving dog? So when you're talking about socializing your new dog to people, I think what is the most important thing to keep in mind is quality over quantity. It's better that we only socialize them or work on desensitization once or twice or 3 times a week and have positive experiences than get them out every day and have them get these repeated negative experiences. That is not, you're not on your way to desensitization if the experiences are negative over and over again.
Yep, 100% I agree.
So let's move on to socializing your dog with other dogs. I think this is a message that a lot of owners get that can be a false narrative. The belief or the messages that we get that dogs can't be happy unless they socialize with other dogs and in big groups, and that universally dogs love to socialize with other dogs. So piggybacking off of that is the rise of dog daycare. And dog parks. Dog parks certainly have been around longer than dog daycare. Dog daycare was really, 20 plus years old. In the early 2000s, it started to pop up. And I think it popped up from a place of doing good for dogs, right? Mm-hmm. This belief that dogs can't have a fully enriched life unless they have doggy friends. And just like people who are introverts, there are plenty of dog introverts. And again, your dog can have a completely full life with you as its only friend. Just believe us.
Yep, 100%.
So for those of you who don't know, Sophie and I spent 4 years working in dog daycare. I managed a large facility for 4 years, and Sophie worked under me as a supervisor. So we have a lot of experience behind the scenes of what a dog daycare looks like. And I don't want to bash dog daycare as a whole, but we do know a lot about it, and a lot of it is not positive.
I mean, to say that we know a lot about the ins and outs of doggy daycare, and the fact that we never really liked to bring our dogs to doggy daycare, and we would do the most for our dogs more than we would do for any other dog, I think says a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to alienate anybody on our third podcast about this. Okay. I don't want to get really controversial, but let's talk about what a group of strange dogs socializing together seems like to them. I mean, I think to people, they absolutely believe they're doing the right things for their dogs. The dog has such fun because when he comes home and this is, again, talking about messages you get, the dog daycare industry will actually sell you a message of, you pick your dog up and your dog sleeps all the way in the car home, gets home, eats dinner, and then sleeps the rest of the night. That is a dog who had fun that day. Mm-hmm. And you and I both know that stress can make someone exhausted too. Having a horrible day makes me much more tired than having a really fun day.
Yep.
Going on a 20-mile bike ride might make me less tired than having an incredibly stressful health event with a relative, and sitting in the hospital all day. So just because a dog comes home from daycare tired does not mean that they had a good and positive experience there. You also brought up the fact that, different breeds do better in daycare than other breeds.
Yep. It's you have a cycling of different dogs. So you have the main dogs that come every single day.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah. And then you have a cycling of different dogs come every single day. And so once we're talking about dog on dog behavior, and certain breeds are going to be playing like boxers, right? They're going to play with their hands. They're going to be punching back and forth, and they're going to be play bowing. That's a very different play behavior than an Australian Shepherd has.
Who doesn't want to be touched.
Doesn't want to be touched.
Who only wants to chase and doesn't want to be touched.
And polices everything whatsoever.
Right. Herding dogs, as a rule, do terrible in daycare.
Horrible.
So it depends on your dog. And it's not that all dogs don't do well in daycare. Certainly Doodles do Labradors,
yep.
Goldens, these goofy, sweet, easygoing, very social breeds and personalities do, by and large better in daycare. Mm-hmm. I think there's a way it can be done that I feel comfortable, and that's small play groups where you match the dog's play style and temperament with other dogs in that small play group.
Yeah.
And certainly size. Size is super important for me. I do not believe in socializing small dogs with big dogs because they're animals. And when things go wrong, that small dog's going to be seriously injured in that case. So any dog daycare who flippantly tells you it's not a problem, we don't separate by size, that's a red flag for me.
Yeah, huge red flag. I mean, I think the reason that I think we ran that daycare the best of our abilities, and I still think it was flawed at certain points, but the goal of the entire daycare that we ran was to try to separate the rooms as much as possible. So we really in total we had 3 rooms, and we separated the rooms in half, and we had a calm side and a hyper side. And we tried to match certain dogs, certain temperaments, and then also matching the people to those specific temperaments, because certain people can't handle really high energy dog compared to other people.
It's actually quite a very skilled, unskilled job.
It really is. I had a hard time being in the rooms because you're on your toes the entire time.
Yeah.
Making
People come
sure
home
everyone
exhausted from daycare
Oh,
too.
man. Oof.
So I guess the bottom line for me in dog daycare is don't feel obligated. Don't think that, because you don't do that and your neighbor does take their dog to daycare, that you're not doing the best for your dog. Again, I go back to your dog doesn't necessarily need doggy friends. If you can find a buddy in the neighborhood that they love to play with, that's the ideal. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
And we like to remind people that a dog that has good training and it has nice leash manners can walk with almost any other dog, even if they dislike each other. Mm-hmm. Like dogs who aren't buddies, and you would never let them be unsupervised together, or even, in your house walking around together, they just don't like each other. Those dogs can walk together if both sets of people have good control over their dog. Once dogs start walking parallel with each other, it's really a completely different mindset. The dog goes into team mode. So even if you have a dog that's aggressive with other dogs, really doesn't like other dogs, you can still get out there and walk, provided you have good training under your belt. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And I think that's where like a lot of the training for us comes in is, our dogs don't love everybody for sure. But being able to walk our dogs with other dogs and kind of give them an example of good leash manners, but without having to socialize them in the backyard, it's like a double-edged sword. It's like 2 birds with 1 stone. That's a better expression. Yeah. Because they bounce off, they learn how to work together as a team. It's a distraction for both dogs to be walking with one another. And so it's a really great relationship that you can have by walking 2 dogs that maybe don't love each other, but they have great leash manners.
Yeah, we don't socialize Deacon with any of the training dogs.
No.
He just does not like it, and we'll absolutely let them know. Mm-hmm. He's on his property. But we walk him with every single training dog we have, and he is perfectly fine. So that's a great way to socialize your dog. In fact, that's probably the best way to introduce it with other dogs, is to just go for a walk with another dog, and just keep enough space so that everybody feels comfortable and work on those leash manners. Mm-hmm. So just like people, dogs are born with social skills or lack thereof. Certainly, they develop as they grow from puppies, but some dogs are just wired with great social skills. Some dogs can come from an absolutely horrific background, and they still have these awesome dog skills. And in fact, sometimes the worse the background, the better the dog skills are, because they've had to navigate and negotiate in these highly stressed situations with dogs in order to survive, in order to live.
Vivian's a great example of that.
Yes,
she came from really, really rough background.
And she has great dog skills.
The best social skills.
Yes.
If we're introducing a new obnoxious training dog, we bring Vivian in because we know Vivian will correct that dog perfectly. Perfect timing, perfect correction. Mm-hmm. And she's not going to overdo it, and she's not going to underdo it.
Yep.
She just has great social skills.
Yeah, and so just like people, dogs who have poor social skills, some of them can learn better social skills. And that's where, and some don't, You know, some people are just awkward for their whole lives. Some dogs are just awkward for their whole lives, and maybe they're not the best dog to socialize with other dogs. But some dogs, particularly young dogs, when they're going through adolescence, you know, most commonly display really awful, rude behaviors that need to be corrected. And if you're in a dog park, for instance, there's no way to know what dogs are there and whether the dogs there are going to be correcting your adolescent puppy in a fair and reasonable way so that your dog learns better social skills. So that is an example of when people need to step in as the owner. When your dog is doing something obnoxious, you need to step in and redirect that behavior. People don't always know that. People sometimes will go, well, I'll just let them sort it out themselves.
Usually ends up in a fight.
Yeah, unless you really know that other dog really well and you know that other dog is super trustworthy, like someone like Vivi, you should have no confidence at all at some strange dog that your dog is playing with at the park is going to correct your dog in a reasonable and fair and safe way. So do you want to talk about some of the things people should look for, good behaviors, bad behaviors from their own dog in a dog park, so they can be on the lookout for that?
Yeah, so I always think it should be 50-50, right? So,
like a dance.
Like a dance, exactly. It should be one dog, they're mouthing on each other, both are mouthing on each other, right? One dog's on his back, then the other dog goes on their back.
Self-handicapping.
One should be chasing the other one should be chasing the other one back. So it should be a 50-50. If you see that your dog's on his back the entire time, he can't get up, his tail's tucked, he keeps backing up, that means your dog's not enjoying it.
Right, so that's not a dance, right? That's just somebody moving into someone else's space. A dance would be back and forth. It's a flow. It should be a fairly even flow. And that's what you need to look at. And some dogs really love to play belly up.
Yep.
And so they're disproportionately on their back because that's how they enjoy it. So some people are like, well, how do I know then? So you need to learn that with your dog. And the easiest way to learn it is to step in, disengage the dogs from each other, redirect, and then let them come back together and see what your dog's reaction is. Like I say, some dogs really have that as a play style, and it's okay. Some other dogs playing with your dog might take advantage of that.
Yep.
And you need to really watch. So I think like going to the dog park thinking you're going to bring your Starbucks with you and chat with people and have a good old people-to-people social club kind of a thing is really unrealistic.
Yep.
It's even more important at the dog park than it is at daycare to have your eyes on that dog all the time because you never know what you're going to get. It's like an evil box of chocolates at the dog park. You never know what you're going to get.
And I mean, I think to a degree the dog park could be great. Being able to properly socialize your dog. And if you're on top of it and you're watching your dog and you know your dog really well, my problem is people go to the dog park with the intention to go to the dog park and they walk in and see that there's maybe you have a small dog and there are a lot of big dogs there, or you know of that one dog and he always picks on your dog and being like, well, I can't turn around. I brought him all the way out here. No. You bring them to another activity because you need to be able to look at the dog park and be like, this is not a good group
not our day
for my dog. So let's just take them on a walk instead.
I hear that a lot. Most dog parks are divided by size. There's a small side and there's a big side. And I hear a lot of people saying, well, I went to the park with my small dog, but there was nobody on the small dog side. So, I didn't want to be left out. So I brought him on the big dog side. I'm like, are you crazy?
Well, and also I think we need to talk about with little dogs is they tend to be on the offense all the time because they're so small. So they really need to try to defend their space and try to defend their area. So it comes off like your little dog is being provocative,
right? Pushy and a bully.
Pushy, when in reality he's just trying to claim the little bit of space that he has, and other dogs will take advantage of that. Also, we need to talk about breed with that too. So you might have a certain hunting dog in there who hunts little dogs, and not purposefully, but their breed, they hunt rabbits, they hunt smaller animals.
Right, so they're not, you're not saying they hunt little dogs.
No,
what you're saying is that a little fluffy white dog can sometimes trigger a big hound who has, hundreds of years of cultivated bloodlines to react to fast-moving, furry objects, which sometimes they can mistake a little dog for.
Yeah, 100%.
Another behavior that people find confusing and sometimes ridiculously frightening is humping.
Yep.
So just to be clear, both males and females will hump. Humping is mostly a dominant behavior, trying to dominate another dog. It's more commonly comes from males and certainly more commonly comes from intact males. It's pretty common also in adolescence because it's an inappropriate behavior, and adolescents do all of these, sort of learn all of these behaviors, sort of testing the waters, and they do these inappropriate behaviors. But humping is not funny. It's not humorous. It's something that needs to be immediately addressed.
Yep.
You want to talk about why?
Yeah, let's put it in human terms. So I think a good example of what humping is in human language is someone shoving you on the street. And one person might react like, oh, I'm so sorry, even though the aggressor was shoving you. And other people are going to stand up and be like, hey, why are you shoving me? What's up? And that could start a fight. So humping is extremely disrespectful.
I think it gets even worse than that. I mean, some people might not say anything, then just turn around and punch you right in the face.
Yeah, that's true too.
And knock you out. So you really don't know when your dog is humping another dog. You have no idea how that dog's going to react when you're in the dog park, because generally you don't know other dogs there. And sometimes the reaction of the dog being humped is one of complete overcorrection, and can injure your dog. Sometimes they overcorrect, and the dog that's doing the humping knows that it was an overcorrection, and they go back at the dog who overcorrected them and go, whoa, what'd you do that for? And then a fight starts.
Yep.
I mean, like a million different scenarios can end in injury to dog or to people then who have to dive into that situation and break them up. So humping should never be tolerated. You need to step in right away and redirect your dog. And if they keep going back to that same dog, or they keep, going around the dog park, humping every dog they see, it's time to go home. It's time to take your dog home. Repeated consequences like that, taking them away from the fun for that type of behavior, when their consequences are consistent, we hope that they will eventually make that connection that, well, if I behave like this, then I don't get to have any fun.
Or your dog's just not meant to socialize with other dogs.
Well, if it's one of those inveterate humpers that can't be, it can't be trained out of, then it's probably big groups are not going to work. And, we have seen dogs come into these groups, and humping is almost like an anxiety response. They feel unsure. And so this negative behavior comes out. So that a repeated humper really should not be socializing in a big group.
They're not enjoying it. They're anxious. They're
and no one else
out.
is enjoying their presence either. Of course, we always hope that when, particularly an adolescent dog is displaying, unwanted, unliked behaviors, if we hope that by redirecting and stepping in and encouraging positive behaviors, that your dog will eventually learn better social skills. And I think most of them do. So again, I think we've covered a lot of ground, Sophie. I hope we were able to get our point across, which is, in summary, yes, the world tells you, your neighbors tell you, your family, your friends, TikTok tell you socializing your new dog is extremely important and needs to be done from the day that dog gets home. And yes, we agree with that. That's true. Our point is that the way you go about socializing might be a little different than you imagined. And just remember that repeated exposure to things that frighten your dog are not going to desensitize them to that thing. It's just going to make them more frightened the next time they see it. So being a bit more conscious and making the experience positive rather than repeated, it's more important that you make the experience positive, like a core memory, right? I love that little jingle on TikTok that they pair with the core memory from that movie. What was the movie, Sophie?
Inside Out.
I love that. So you want to make these core memories of the most important thing, like meeting new people and going new places, maybe focus on that. Want to make it a positive core memory for them and not a negative core memory, rather than just doing a lot of it. And just remember, regarding dog-to-dog socialization, your dog can live a full and enriched life never having another dog friend. It's not an absolute necessity that your dog socialize with other dogs. If you can make it happen in a safe and positive way, and I mean safe and positive for all parties, that is a mantra that we have here when we have dogs in for training and boarding. We do socialize them together, but I always tell people we never socialize just to socialize. We only want dogs to play together when all parties are enjoying it, and that includes our own dogs. We do not put our own dogs in with the training dogs and the boarding dogs to work. We want them to enjoy it. So if we have a dog who's not getting along with the group, we socialize them separately or only let them play with another dog that enjoys them. That's the thing you need to keep in mind. We want the experience of dog-to-dog play to be positive for everyone involved. So here we are, Soph, at the end of our third podcast. Again, we babbled on for 30-something minutes. I hope that people got something positive out of this. What do you think? Did you enjoy this one?
I think this is a hard topic to talk about, but I did enjoy it because, I think it's important to tell people that, you don't always have to socialize your dog the way media tells you to socialize them.
Right. You don't have to be perfect. Sometimes the expectations are a little silly, and applying some common sense goes a long way. Yeah,
I think an important thing is pairing them to your lifestyle. Like, you should enjoy them all the time.
Well, for sure. That's always the goal. All right. So that's it for episode 3. Thanks for joining us. As always, we would love to hear your opinions about future topics on future episodes. So feel free to reach out to us either in the comments or DM us through our social media. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time on Dog for Thought. Dog for Thought is written and hosted by me, Sarah Brown, co-hosted by Sophie Brown, produced, edited, and original music by Jacob Brown. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.